Welcome back, everybody. We got Ricky Reigns back in the house. Guess who's back? Back
Yeah, man,
again.
that's what, two times in 3 days? That's
Oh man, and your video. I just started a TikTok last night.
mhm.
Your video has way more views, like on my reel. It's at like 700 views,
Hey, I'd love to hear that.
dude. You're like, and I post like them all at the same time. So I have like basically all my reels that are on my Instagram. I just put on TikTok,
Yeah.
and yours is like 700, and like next closest is like 250.
Oh,
So
I love that.
I was like, I guess I got to get this guy back. Um, yeah, I feel like we got to have like an intro for you. So I was actually thinking about this earlier. So I think the obvious one is like, hey Ricky, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hey Ricky, you know?
Yeah, that's a great one. Or Ricky, don't lose that number.
Oh yeah.
That's a
We can
good
do
one
that
too.
one.
Yeah.
Ricky, don't lose. Yeah, that's kind of slower. I kind of went
Yeah.
like that. I was thinking like something really short, like Ricky. You know?
What's the it's tricky? Who sings it's tricky?
Oh yeah. Ricky. Oh,
Yeah, something along those
Ricky.
lines.
Actually, I think I like that one the best.
That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah, let me write that down. I'm definitely gonna forget it, but let me write it down. I have to like give their producer a call and see if I can like get the rights to it or something.
Yeah, you gotta get the copyrights.
With my $0 budget.
Yeah, that's right.
But Ricky just put out his Cat Crave article talking about what he's looking for in training camp. It's really, really good if you want to see it. He basically goes over what he's watching, which is kind of what we're all sort of watching. I know a lot of the off season has been built around our weapons and what kind of weapons we have. And I looked it up and I saw when Reich took over an Indy, his best receiver was T.Y. Hilton, and he went for like 762 yards or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, so Reich doesn't need. So this we're creating a big deal to the fantasy purposes, I think, and that sort of thing. But he had
Yeah.
Marlon Mack and 700-yard T.Y. Hilton. So
And
I
they
think,
and the running backs that he had too, he targeted them in the passing game so much more.
right.
You look at like their leading receivers; they had a running back in the top 3 leading receivers every single year under Reich.
Yeah,
And you're
Jack
right; like,
Doyle
it was
was.
it was a hodgepodge group of receivers type of situation.
Yeah.
Once they got Michael Pittman and he kind of acclimated, which he did in his second year under Reich, and kind of getting comfortable in the offense and all that stuff, then he was clearly the offense or the wide receiver one for that team. But even then, he was still seeing a relatively tame target share as far as the spreading around of the ball. And we've got Bryce Young, who's a point guard at quarterback anyways. That's what everyone keeps talking about. So spreading the ball around is going to be a very linear track for this
Yeah,
offense.
yeah, exactly. Like even Pittman was is a good talent, but he was still a rookie, and then
Yeah.
he was in his second year, and Reich got fired his first 5 games of his third year.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're expecting that, okay, he knows how to draft wide receivers, obviously because he got Michael Pittman. Well, he just came in and drafted a wide receiver.
Right.
So we can talk. We can barely touch on that. We've talked way too much because I'm actually a defensive guy. Like if you can see I'm wearing my Chin jersey.
See that? Yeah. Superman role.
Yeah. You know what, man? I have a Brian Burns 53 jersey, and
Sorry to hear that.
I get a jersey every year, and except for last year, I was going to get an Icky jersey, and they were sold out, and I just like got in the way. So I may get 2 jerseys this year if my wife lets me. But,
yeah, splurge. Treat yourself.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I really want an Icky jersey, but now I just got this 53. Man, my first jersey that I ever bought was a Kelvin Benjamin jersey.
Oof.
It's so rough.
Man,
So,
I'm surprised you stuck with it after that.
Yeah.
I'd have probably went back to the T-shirts or something, you know?
to be fair, I bought it at the beginning of the 2015 season. So like right before he tore his ACL. So, I mean, it was unlucky that way, but we went to the Super Bowl that year. So
that's right. Yeah. And there was still reason for optimism.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I kept buying jerseys, because maybe it's me buying jerseys that gets us to the Super Bowl.
Hey, there you go. All right, well then buy a few this year then.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm gonna get 2. Yeah, I'm gonna get man, I think I have to get a Shark jersey, right?
Well, yeah, you have to for sure.
Beating the Shark drum all year.
I think you're going to need a white, a black, and a processed blue Shark jersey, and get a Lions one just for good measure.
Jags too. Yeah,
Yeah,
why
yeah,
not?
yeah.
Let's get them all.
Every
Let's get them
single
all.
stop.
I actually, we didn't talk about this before, but I do want to touch on that because I was looking at who I think Mike K did post this, or maybe it was Michael Rimmer about what battles we're looking forward to most, and it
Hmm.
got me thinking about it. And of course, the main ones that you write in your article are ones that I'm looking at, but I'm also I didn't think about it that much until I thought about it. I'm interested to see if we are too locked in on who we have starting at wide receiver. So I want to talk to you a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
Yep.
Your article touches on three areas. I'll let you kind of intro all of that when we get there. But the first is on Bryce,
Hmm.
because I mean that's
Has to
yeah,
be.
you got to get your quarterback right. Yeah, and we
You
haven't
got
seen
the
him in the
number
NFL.
one overall pick of the draft. He's the number one player rated in college every year since the moment he stepped on that field. So yeah, yeah, you cannot go into training camp without talking about him first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's what we should just like get right into because it feels like we have a lot to talk about.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would just go ahead and take it away. What you're looking for in training camp with Bryce?
Yeah, so obviously the narrative on Bryce has always been about his size. Once he started doing the rookie OTAs and these extracurricular workouts that he's putting together with some of the wideouts and the running backs and the tight ends, that shifted to how quickly he's picking up, how quickly he's acclimating, and kind of organizing all of this for the team, right? He has already taken on this leadership role. We have heard numerous times about his quiet confidence and things of that nature. One of the things that I'm really interested in seeing in training camp, when that speed ramps up, when the pads are on, everyone's fighting for a job always, right? But in training camp, there are guys who are literally day by day fighting for their livelihood. They will make a big splash if they do it against Bryce Young. So there is a target on his back, even from his own teammates. I know he performs under pressure. You look at any statistics, especially from PFF and all that kind of stuff. Under pressure, he was I believe, the best college quarterback. He had the highest pressure rating. Um, I would love to see what that looks like in the NFL when everyone is so worried about his physical stature and the statures of the defenders. I would love to see how that carries over. And I think that we will because you're going to see more physical pressure being put on him. He's still not going to get hit. They're not going to let him just get drugged by his own teammates. That's not going to happen. But they will absolutely come at him faster and with more intent than we have seen before. What happens if he starts to struggle against that? You know what I mean? I want to see how does he handle that adversity? How do his teammates rally around that adversity? If he misses a few throws because either his timing is off or because his internal clock got sped up by the pressure of the defense, I really, really want to see, like, does everybody kind of say, hey man, look, we got you, we trust in you, we know exactly what you already have, even though you're a rookie, we seen it, we're happy, let's do this. I also really am curious to see the split in formations that we're going to run. We know that the offensive philosophies of Thomas Brown and Frank Reich aren't the same, but we also know that in the Venn diagram of their philosophies, there is a gray area, right? There is that middle part where they do share common interests, common goals. I want to see how often is Bryce Young in the shotgun, where everyone feels he is most comfortable. He's going to have to operate under center as well to stay honest on the offensive side of that ball. You can't just run out of that shotgun. I really want to see how he does with that. I want to see his rapport with the offensive line. I want to see formationally and personnel wise, I do want to see how much tight end usage we see. I want to see how many wideouts we have on the field at the same time. Do we run a lot of 12 personnel? You know, like what do we look like when we're out there? And you can't really tell any of that in mini camps and OTAs. Training camp is where you're going to actually see them start testing out things that they want to apply in real game situations.
Yep. I think you hit on a ton of points that I was going to bring up earlier. Shotgun rate. I looked this up a long time ago, and I wish I could remember exactly what the number was. But I think the entire time that Reich was there, he was in shotgun like 75% of the time. He has
Yeah,
like one of the highest shotgun rates, which in I mean, think about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is an under center a lot. Kyler Murray, it like gets you away from the line.
absolutely.
So I think that helps. And you're talking about high release for everybody keeps on talking about, yeah, he's like a little shorter, but he has a high
He's
release that
yeah.
doesn't have batted balls. And we're
Yeah,
talking about the
he's got great throwing mechanics, man. Like he sometimes can get a little bit happy with his feet, and a lot of that comes from the out of structure, off platform type of creating that he has to do. But there are still times where his maybe it's even that crazy brain of his, right? Maybe he is so sped up inside of his brain that his body has a difficult time catching up every now and then and working in sync with it. Sometimes his feet will be a little bit behind his upper body. I want to see how that all looks. The shotgun will help with that. The RPOs will help with that. There is if he is going to pull that back, right? If he pulls that ball back when he is looking at, is he going to run or is he going to throw the ball? When he pulls that back, there is a natural movement with his hips and aligning his legs to where he is going to be identifying conflict defenders. I want to see how all of that looks. What you were saying about his release point, though, the other thing about the shotgun, if Bryce's processing is his superpower, when you're 5 yards behind that line of scrimmage, it's going to buy you that extra second or something like that. He's releasing the ball with around 3 seconds, is what his college release time was. I think it might have been a hair over, like 3.03 or something like that.
mm-hmm.
Shave that off because in the NFL, the benchmark is always 3. You want to get it out in under 3 seconds. That's the shotgun's going to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of his going over 3 seconds is just because of his creating,
Right,
So like,
exactly. Yeah.
you don't want
Yeah.
to take that magic out because you're looking at metrics. Let the guy play the way he wants to play. And I want to see how that looks in the NFL. And we'll see that in training camp.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be a coaching area where you're going to have to just let him be him a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
which can be really hard for a rookie.
Yeah.
But it's like the trust thing that I hope that our coaching staff, which I think they do, I think that they get it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that like say you're Bill Belichick or you're Mike Tomlin, it's like very structured, like you have to do it like this specific way.
Mm-hmm.
But Andy Reid, you're like, I gotta let Mahomes do Mahomes kind of thing.
Right.
And we're talking about the speed of the NFL, people going after him. How many Georgia players got drafted this year in the first 2 rounds?
Mm.
Like, and Eagles got like 9 of them, 9 of the 7, I guess. But like a lot of the Georgia guys were like praising the Eagles for getting these great players. Look how many points Bryce Young put up against Georgia.
Right. And that was with an Alabama offensive line that was way worse than it has been historically, at least in the recent history, right? That offensive line was probably the worst offensive line that Alabama's had in a decade, maybe as far as NFL talent and as far as performance. He did miraculous stuff behind that line with that Georgia defense, and he looked really good doing it. He made some mistakes. He did, I think it was was it Keely Ringo got the pick 6 off of him in I believe it was the SEC championship game that happened. That might have been in 21 as well. It might not even have been in 22. He's going to make mistakes, man. He's a rookie. And that's part of what was in the article as well, is that we really need to be realistic about this and know that hiccups will come. We know that we're with a first-year coaching staff, everyone working together. We know that we have a rookie quarterback, and we know that we have a brand new receiving corps. Get used to a little bit of hiccups. Take them in stride. As long as it is not a consistent thing that is happening, there is no reason to panic because Bryce Young doesn't throw for 100% completion, 7 touchdowns and 0 interceptions every single game.
Right, exactly. And so Mike K, and I actually am really glad that I get to fix what I said last time, because you said C3 and I said no. It was C3 that Mike K was on, but it wasn't their main pod.
I think it was just Tony, right?
It was a side pod. And then he brought up, so that's why I was thinking it wasn't C3, but it was C3. So I got to give them their props for that pod.
Yeah, that was a good interview.
Yeah. So Mike K comes on and he said, Bryce Young did throw bad balls. He threw, he made bad plays, but it never affected him. Like he always came back and did something else.
Right.
And that's what really impressed Mike K.
And that's exactly what we're talking about with that adverse, reactions. Like, what is he going to do when the proverbial shit hits the fan? How does he react? How does the team react? And that cool, calm, collected demeanor that everyone refers to with Bryce, it comes out of him when he plays. Like it literally, that confidence transfers through the rest of the team. Yeah. I want to see that in action. Like I've heard all the reports. I can't wait to actually see it happen.
you don't have Darnold coming out saying he's seeing ghost. Like you don't
Man.
have that. You don't look at your quarterback and be like, is he going to be okay?
Yeah,
Like
and
with
I
Bryce, I
can't
think
wait. I can't wait until somebody can make a meme of Darnold's, oh, guys are wide open out there. I can't wait until somebody says,
yeah,
hey, how about Frank Reich's offense with Bryce Young? A lot of guys are open.
yeah. So just touching on one point, it's not like he was throwing to Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith on Alabama either. Like
Mm-mm.
he didn't have the same receivers that I mean he had
Yep.
Gibbs, but he didn't have the same guys.
Yeah, no, his
But
surrounding talent it was a down year at
yeah,
Alabama.
yeah. But like touching on you said formations and using the tight end. I
Mm-hmm.
think the assumption going in is that we're going to have TMJ at the X, Chark at the Z, and then Thielen in the slot, right?
Yeah.
That's the assumption. That's what ESPN has, and that was my assumption. But the more I'm looking into it, and the more I was like watching Rams film,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that with as much motion as we're going to be running,
Mm-hmm.
and as many guys that we're going to want to, have playing different areas,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that Chark can play all over the field. We know that Thielen can play all over the field. Do we? I think I might rather have them play on the outsides and have Mingo, Chanel, those guys, going in motion a lot or going, two tight ends or that sort of thing, than having Tagnett, TMJ
Mm-hmm.
on the outside of the X. I don't know, like, and you were talking about how, like, you were talking about that formation wise.
Right.
So I don't think it's locked in that TMJ is the starter.
Um, no, I'm not sure that there's really any positional standings that are 100% locked in right now. And obviously,
Thielen will
look,
start.
Brian Burns, or well, yeah, and I'm just talking about the roster in
Yeah, yeah,
general,
yeah, yeah.
right? Bryce Young has been named the starter. We know our offensive line. We know who the best players are there. We know that Brian Burns. We know Derek Brown. We know the obvious stalwarts of the team. As far as this new receiving group, though, I don't really know that there is a great label to put on anybody. I don't know that there's a designation to put on any of these guys. And it was touched in the article as an honorable mention of I don't think that we figure out who wide receiver one is in training camp. I'm not even sure that we figure it out halfway
It's
through the
gonna be
season.
Chark.
I'm not sure that there is a wide receiver one. You know what I mean?
Hmm. I
Um,
mean, we do know.
oh yeah, DJ Chark led. Yeah, sorry. My apologies. I forgot who I was talking to. Um, but I think that it's less important about who we name wide receiver one.
Yeah.
It is going
Oh
to be a
yeah.
game to game type of situation. But I don't think that you're wrong that there is some versatility with all of these receivers. I think that all of them can play a multiple alignment situation. I don't think that Terrace Marshall Jr. is pigeonholed to only playing the outside receiver as well.
Mhm.
I think that he has the capability, and we're going to see some of this in training camp, and that's what we're interested in, right?
Right. Yeah.
We're not going to
Exactly.
see
Yeah.
everything. They're not going to tell us every single secret, but
Yeah.
they have to start practicing things that they want to run in real game situations. I mean, they have to. You can't go into it saying, "Ah, good, we saved 90% of our offensive philosophy for the regular season so that we didn't tip our hats," and then you have no practice in it against people. You're going to
Right.
have to start seeing some of the real things materialize. Um, I think that Adam Thielen will probably be the receiver that moves around the most, if I had to guess, because I think that his history of playing the outside and then his proclivity to produce from that slot just gives him a huge versatility. You know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
gives him a big bump initially. And his hands, I mean, he's got a great drop percentage historically, and he actually improved upon that last season. I just really think that it's going to depend on who Bryce builds that chemistry with. And that is part of why he is doing these outside the facility workouts. He even said it. He had an interview with Jonathan Jones, yeah, for
Mhm.
CBS. He used to write for the Observer. He had an interview with Jonathan Jones here about going to training camp, and he mentioned it. He says, it's about the communication. It's about building this chemistry. It's about getting familiar, getting the timing right. That is what we're honed in on. That's what we're
Mhm.
focused on. Don't look for are we going to win the Super Bowl? Don't look for any of that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, maybe. And look, me and you both
I bet it.
have a higher win prediction than 98% of anyone talking about win-loss predictions. So I think that it's fair to say that we are more optimistic about this team than most analysts, pundits, fans, public, whatever you want to say. but I'm still going to be a little bit grounded about that and say that even if we do hit that 11 wins that I'm talking about, I'm not looking at this team to win the Super Bowl this year. If we do, obviously I'm not going to complain and try to return it. I'm going to keep it. I want that. But I'm also not going to be discouraged if we don't hit the highest of peaks in year one.
Yeah. Let me just run through when Reich took over Indy,
Mm-hmm.
what the receiver yardage was. We had
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton with 762, Zach Pascal with 629,
Mm-hmm.
and Marcus Johnson with 255.
Yeah.
So I think that he's gonna be okay.
Right.
And he was dealing with Mo Ali Cox, who nobody really thought was any good.
Oh man, I
Jack
love Mo
Doyle.
Alley Cox.
I mean, we love.
I do. To be
Yeah,
completely honest, I really think he's got something.
yeah. Well, it's also like what's the guy that has played forever on the Packers? God, what's his name? He's like 9 feet tall. He's
Martellus
like
Bennett.
four. No. I'm thinking about it in a bit, but he's just like played forever. And he like keeps wanting to. What was the guy that played for the Panthers that was also like that? Uh, man,
A
I
super
should
tall
record this.
guy that played for the Panthers.
Yeah, the big dude, and he went to somewhere. I think it doesn't matter. We'll talk about it. I'll figure it out and I'll put it in a tweet.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend too much time on it. But there's like these big, strong dudes that just like play forever. That you're like, I love this guy because he's just a big dude that can get
Yeah.
like in front of people.
Well,
Hayden
Mo Alley
Hurst.
Cox always has that appeal too because he was a power forward at VCU. So
Yeah.
anytime that I can see a basketball player translate to tight end, I'm instantly like, is this the next Tony Gonzalez? Is this the next Antonio Gates? Oh man, this guy's going to be a dominant player. And then they go for
Goldsboro.
like 300 yards and a touchdown and for a year. But I'm like, they're just not getting used correctly, man. Like,
Yeah.
let me go out there and I'll get Mo Alley Cox into the Pro Bowl.
Goldsboro native, which is where I'm from, Goldsboro, North Carolina. Jimmy Graham didn't play high school football. He was a power forward at Miami.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. I played with him. I played with him on my middle school football team, and he broke his collarbone, and he didn't want to get hurt again because he wanted to focus on basketball. And then he got back into football in college. It's wild that
you got to figure out a way to turn that into one of those fishing stories, though. Like, hey, I played against Jimmy Graham, and we kind of had like a bump in, and it broke his collarbone. You really got to sell that, man.
No,
like,
no, I was like 5'2" in middle school. Jimmy Graham's been 6'5".
He's been 6'6" since he was like 7 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was so funny when he was playing middle school basketball because he was so like he hadn't like fully grown into his body yet, so he was like kind of like lanky and all over the place,
like a baby giraffe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I see him again. He's ninth grade playing for Eastern. Shout out Eastern Wayne High School. He was playing for Eastern Wayne High School JV team when he was in ninth grade, and was just built and dunking on people. I was like, what happened to that middle school kid that broke his collarbone?
Well, because you probably had like an 1.5-inch growth spurt as well, but Jimmy Graham jumped up like 122 pounds in 6 inches real quick.
Yeah. First person to ever dunk on me, Jimmy Graham.
Difference between an athlete and a regular person, right?
Yeah, he went to Cherish Prep when I was in high school, and they would practice at the local YMCA, and they would just scrimmage against the random people that were playing basketball. And I was screaming. He gets on a fast break. The first time the best rule that I was ever taught that day: when somebody's bigger, stronger, it can jump higher than you, and you're guarding them on a fast break, just let them go.
Oh yeah,
just let them go.
Yeah, let them make a highlight. Don't be the highlight. Yeah, let them make a highlight. Don't be the highlight.
Exactly. Especially when you're like 5'2" and like he's like 6'5".
Your time to shine is when there is a loose ball on that hardwood. You get out there and you skid your ass across that floor and you get it. That is it. And then you go back to the bench and you drink everyone's water and you're like, I fucking did it.
Exactly. Oh, we went off the pineapple. So we got off the
major
rails.
pineapple.
So we talked about how is he going to mesh with the offensive line. I like it that we're young, and as far as our offensive line, and outside of Moten, I mean, you got Icky in his second year. Bozeman, I think he's going in his fifth year. Christensen's going in his third year. Like they're not like too big for their britches, and they also just played with those dudes last year. I don't want to like shit on them, but those dudes. So I think that they aren't going to have some like you need to be better attitude. So I think
Hmm.
both ways they're going to do their very best to be as on par with each other as possible.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a really interesting point that you make because I think that there's something that we don't give enough credit when we talk about Bryce Young and the impact that he'll have on the offense. We look at it from a what is he going to do? Like him individually, what will he do? When you have a guy that you believe in that can take you to whatever level you can get to, like you believe he is not just a holdover until we can figure out the long term solution. This is a guy that like you see people rally around Pat Mahomes and all that kind of stuff. This is a guy that these offensive linemen, they had a great year last year, right? You can expect that to be amplified because of their desire to protect Bryce Young individually. He is going to get the best out of everyone, not just because of his physical performance, but because of what he represents as a possibility for this team. Everybody works together. It's a team. Team units that work together cohesively to reach that goal. It's a good thing. Like
yeah,
there is no
yeah,
downfall to that kind of setup.
yeah, exactly. Also, I wanted to touch on the point earlier that I didn't get back to, like the size narrative.
Yeah.
Who can like? Why
Who
does
gives a
it
shit?
matter? Like,
Yeah.
why does it like you can't touch the quarterback anyways?
And
Like,
even if you can though, like big quarterbacks get hurt.
yeah, Joe
Little quarterbacks
Burrow.
get hurt. Offensive linemen get hurt. Defensive tackles get hurt.
Yeah,
It,
the
injuries
guys that get
aren't
hurt more are the big dudes.
injuries aren't saved for tiny people. Like it can happen to anybody at any time. And people are like, well, yeah, well, Kyler Murray got hurt. Kyler Murray tore his ACL and he
Yeah,
was running. It was a non-contact injury.
non-contact. Yeah,
Like
it
that's
blows my
crazy, dude.
mind.
Yeah. That it's
Yeah,
just not something to get bent out of shape about because you're creating a problem where it doesn't already exist.
yes,
If he had a history of missing games, and I mean, you can go back to prep school, you go back to high school, you go back to college, anything. If he had a history of missing significant time because of injuries that were directly related to his frame and his size, cool, man. Let's talk about it and let's make that a legitimate thing.
yeah,
But until there is reason to worry, I am not going to sound alarms and start freaking out already. Like
yeah,
that's foolish and it's also kind of disrespectful and unfair to Bryce Young, who has busted his ass and been on the field. Hey, let that man cook, let him do exactly what he does and just sit back and be happy that we have him.
yeah. No, yeah, and it's usually not the Panthers fans that do this, but like it's almost like it's such an easy thing to say, and
Yeah.
you can just say it, and people just buy into it because it sounds correct. Like
Yeah.
small guy gets hurt in football, but the he stays within the pocket for a lot of his
Hmm.
like Kyler Murray. Yes, he gets hit outside, like he runs.
Yeah. Keller Murray also wasn't talked about for his pocket presence and awareness and processing ability. That wasn't
Yeah,
his thing when he came
yeah,
out. His thing coming out was he's incredibly athletic and fast and he scrambles and he can throw the ball in all kinds of different angles. That's it. And he
yeah,
operated Lincoln Riley's system to a T. Bryce Young
yeah,
is a different player, man. Like
yeah,
and
yeah.
you say like it's the easy thing to bring up or whatever. The other part of that is it might be one of the only things to bring up right
Right,
now.
right. It's like a narrative.
There isn't a plethora of things to start taking apart of Bryce Young's game. His game film is really clean. Like
Yeah,
really clean. There's some mechanical issues, there's a couple of mistakes as there will be with everyone. He's a human. Um but his film is really clean, man. This is a really smart good player that plays within his realm and his limitations. He knows what he can and can't do. Everyone
mm,
wants to talk about his arm limitations. I've seen him make throws that are not limited wet noodle arm throws. Like this dude can put the ball where it needs to be. And a lot of it is anticipation and timing and just being better at that. Because
mm,
he can't look, he's not going to stand flat footed and throw this thing 45 yards on a seam. You know what I mean? Like down the middle. That's not going to happen. He is going to have to use his mechanics. He's going to have to do things the right way, but he can still do it. And he does that on a consistent basis. So again,
yeah,
don't create issues that don't already exist.
yeah. So I just want to make this point real fast because I just want to do it as a quick comp, and I'm not comparing one versus the other as being better. But
Oh, this is going to be rough, isn't it?
we have the Jets that went 7-10 last year, and we want to talk about all their young players that are very very good going into their prime,
Mm-hmm.
and then they add the quarterback. Granted, it's Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be 40 this year, but it's an Aaron Rodgers. You want to know how many quarterbacks have started a postseason game 40 or over?
Lay it on me.
Three.
Okay. Who are they?
Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Brett Favre.
When you said Tom Brady twice, I thought that was like two of the
No,
answers. Like Tom
no,
Brady, Tom Brady, and
no. He's done it way more than
yeah,
that. But I'm
right,
saying,
right.
so 40-year-olds don't usually start in the playoffs. They also got to go against the Bills, the Dolphins, and watch out for the Patriots. Nobody's talking about them, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as you think.
They're going to be as bad as you think.
All right.
The Patriots suck.
All right. All right. So regardless, that division, you add a 40-year-old quarterback into like Super Bowl, and I got to watch them on Fox Sports for ever and ever and ever and ever.
Yep.
But the Panthers have guys going into their prime as well.
That's right.
We added a quarterback, and we upgraded heavily at coach.
Yep.
And we're in a trash division.
Yep.
But nothing. It's like
right.
it's wild. It's wild.
Panthers tax.
Yeah. Jets
Yep.
sold out training camp in 3 minutes.
Yep.
So wild. All right, we're 30 minutes in, so let's go to the defense, which is the basically 2 and 3 of your article. What do you want to start off with first? Want to start off with what you did? Or
Let's talk about the secondary because I saw a awesome piece of data today presented by, I believe it was Cody Alexander on Twitter.
Cody.
Man, he did a terrific job. He laid out a percentage rate of coverages being disguised by defensive coordinators per team. So that's from open to close, from close to open, open staying open, close staying closed. Now, if you don't understand exactly what that means, when you refer to something as open or closed, you're talking about the middle of the field, and you're talking about the pre-snap read that a quarterback will make based off of where the safeties are aligned. So when you talk about open, you're referring to basically cover two, where you have two safeties and they're lined up on both sides, left and right side alignment, right on the hashes. Cover three is more of the open look or the closed look because there is a safety lined up in the middle of that field. So it is directly in front of that quarterback where he's snapping the ball. So you do your pre-snap reads and diagnosing based off of that. There are plays, 2 beaters and 3 beaters that are designed to know if you can identify that coverage, you know which side of the field you're going to. You know where your 3 routes are, you know where your 2 are. Evero for the Broncos was by far the leading percentage rate of disguising his coverage. And I believe it was from open to close that had the biggest significance. 45.3% of the time he was disguised from open to close on that defense. Why that's important to me is because in the article, what I talked about a lot was versatility and where these secondary players line up. How are they going to perform? Now, the corners, look, that's health. I want to see everyone stay healthy. J.C. Horn and Dante Jackson, if they're healthy. I'm not saying that Dante Jackson is a Pro Bowler anymore at this point in his career, but he's not a scrub. I am so tired of hearing every single Panthers fan, honestly. Like, it's our own fans who hate Dante Jackson. It's like, dude, I get it. He's not Patrick Peterson was 4 years ago. He might be close to what Patrick Peterson is right now.
Right.
And I would take Patrick Peterson. Everyone wants Marcus Peters. I mean, what does Marcus Peters do right now physically that's so much better than what Dante Jackson would do? I mean, he's a ball hawk.
Was that the 2 that you put on Twitter?
No, actually, the 2 that I put up was Marcus Peters and C.J. Henderson.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And their accumulative stats or their quantitative stats for last year are remarkably similar, and C.J. actually has better stats. Now he has a way worse coverage. Yeah. He has. Well, Marcus Peters had a decent coverage grade though last year. I think he was in the mid 60s according to Pro Football Focus, where
the
CJ was, I believe,
as a whole last year for the Ravens was bad.
Was not good, and they had injuries that they were dealing with as well throughout the year.
Weird. It's weird how that happens.
Right. Yeah. When you don't have your best players on the field, your unit tends to struggle more than they should.
And then and you know what? You can still make the playoffs.
That's right.
If you have people hurt.
That's right. You can still do it. But back to what I was saying, Pineapple, sorry. When you're talking about disguising coverages and you have a guy like Evero who came out and literally said, or maybe it wasn't Evero, it might have been the linebackers coach or the secondaries coach that talked about Jeremy Chin. And he said, we're going to use him in a super role or a superhero role or something like that. I believe they termed it. They don't know exactly where he's going to line up. They don't know what they're going to do with him on a game-to-game basis. But disguising coverages and staying multiple in that approach is going to be so good with the personnel that we have on this team. Eric Rowe, Jamie Robinson, Jeremy Chin, even J.C. Horn to an extent are going to be able to line up just about anywhere in that back portion of that second and third level of our defense. Yep. They are going to be able to be used interchangeably. We won't tip our hat and we will be able to maintain surprise elements of the defense.
Yeah,
And honestly, what a defensive coordinator's job is to confuse the quarterback, the opposing quarterback. That's what Evero's really, really good at.
yeah.
He can put his players in position to succeed like he did last year. He put his players in position to succeed. There wasn't a whole lot of individual win on the Broncos defensive side last year. Now, they were a great team ranking wise. As far as accumulating sacks and things of that nature, they didn't get there. That is more on the individual performance than it is for the scheme, in my opinion.
Yep.
I am really interested to see that if we are running out Chin and Von Bell and Xavier Woods at times, I can't wait to see what that whole disguised formation coverage starts producing, because you're not going to be able to tell anything on the offensive side of the ball. Now, the other part of that, and real quick, just to harken back to Bryce, he's going to get to practice against these disguised coverages.
Yeah.
And if and Evero was, I think, 45.3%, the closest was 39%, and that was the Rams. And then there was only one other team that was even at 30% or higher. So you're talking about 3 teams out of the entire NFL eclipsed 30%. It might have been the Bills.
The
Bills or the Seahawks?
Okay.
Might have been the Seahawks, actually. Okay. And it's interesting, too, because the Rams and then Evero with Denver, I mean, that's the same coaching tree, right?
Yeah,
that checks out.
Yeah.
Bryce is going to see that in practices. So that is just, again, adding to his arsenal. When he can shave off more time because he can identify things that maybe other teams think they're going to surprise him with, you're not surprising him because Evero is giving him the full bag. Right. You have to beat this team. You have to beat my mind. Mm-hmm. And if Evero's as good as everyone thinks he is, which I think he is, Bryce has to beat one of the best defensive coordinators in the game every single day in practice. I love that. Iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron.
There you go.
And Ricky can't fucking talk.
Hey, man, you're talking to... I stumble over my words all the time. Going back to Mike K, man. Mike K, you are on this article. I mean, on this...
glad he's at the Observer, man. That's a good local beat reporter.
So he talked about it, too. He's like, look at us doing a lot of 3-3-5 kind of stuff. Right. And I think that Chin is big. So he's a big. So you're gonna see a lot of 3
he's the
safeties.
Big nickel. Yeah.
Yeah. So he will. He is versatile enough, and he has enough coverage skills to cover the slot. He has. He can come in at linebacker. I think that what we're gonna see a lot is that you're gonna have Shaq in the middle, Luvu and Burns on the outsides. You're gonna have Brown. I think we're gonna see I think nobody's talking about Yetur Gross-Matos, but he can defend the run. And he's not awful at getting to the quarterback. And when we're going to be playing 3-3-5, I don't think that, and we won't be playing those in places that we're going to be, heavily blitzing. If we do, we'll do like a creative package. We'll get Lubu in there. We'll get Chen in there. We'll get Von Bell. We'll be creative about it. But I think that you're going to have all these guys that, whether it's McCall or Tuttle in the middle, Brown either on both sides of the line, and then we'll have on outside, I think Lubu, Burns, and this isn't every time. I'm saying we're going to experiment with this, and then Chin's going to be linebacker, nickel kind of guy.
Right. The question about YGM, and actually, you know what? Let's save this because we're going to talk about the front 7 after we talk about secondary. So I'll save that part for them. Getting back to the secondary, though, so that's the safety aspect of it. I really am curious, though, and Von Bell was a player that I think is not being talked about enough as far as additions to this team and for the outlook for 2023. Von Bell is the best coverage safety we have had on this team in at least 4 or 5 years, at least. He is going to be able, when we talk about lining up and cover 3s and stuff like that, and you have one safety out there in the middle and you got the corners dropping back, Von is going to be able to man that middle of that field like that. That's not where Jeremy Chin excelled. And that was where we sometimes asked Jeremy Chin to perform, and it was setting him up for disappointment.
Yeah.
Having Von Bell out there, you don't feel that. So if you can unleash Jeremy Chin to roam around and to play closer to what he played in his rookie year, where everyone was very excited about this guy. I mean, Jeremy Chin performed exceedingly well in his rookie year. This was a guy that made, I think, all first team rookie defense.
I think he was like 3rd in rookie of the year behind Patrick Queen and Chase Young. I'm pretty sure. He's 3rd or 4th.
And it's not that his skills have diminished. It's that he has been misused. Yeah. Let's see what happens when we free him up of that responsibility that maybe he's not as terrific at. And you say, he can defend the slot. He can. It's not necessarily where he's going to be at his best,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also not overwhelmed there on a constant basis.
Right, right.
Get him there, get him roaming around, let him play the big nickel, let him play in the box a little bit more. Let Bell man that deep part of the secondary. And then we have to see what we have with these corners. And that's a thing that I'm looking very closely at training camp,
Mm-hmm.
because the depth guys from last year that everyone has a problem with, the CJ Hendersons, the Keith Taylor Juniors, all of the, Stanley Oliver Thomas, even to an extent. I just don't think that they're as bad as they looked last year in
No,
that situation.
no.
That situation was unfortunate, man. Like last year, just the whole thing last year was unfortunate.
Yeah,
And yet we still managed to be a middle of the road team.
yeah. On pure talent.
On pure talent and like just trying, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. These
We're
poor
gonna be
guys,
in,
man. Wilkes having to, dude.
man,
I can't believe that.
everybody, like everyone just got the short end of the stick, I feel
Yeah,
like last year.
yeah.
I don't feel that way coming in. I don't feel like the team feels that way coming into this year.
No.
But there is still some answers or questions that have to be answered at training
Mm.
camp with some of these guys. Because if there isn't a noticeable jump from the guys like CJ Henderson and Keith Taylor Jr., I think you absolutely do have to start looking at adding a free agent player in the secondary.
Yeah.
I don't
And
necessarily foresee
Thomas
that.
Oliver, like people have been talking
Yeah,
about
man,
him.
he's been getting some pretty nice feedback,
Yeah,
honestly. Like they have, I think it was Dante Jackson that
yeah.
actually said that he was impressed with his performance and how he was stepping in for a little bit of the injured guys, even in OTAs and stuff like that. Stanley Thomas Oliver, I mean, he's another guy that had a great RAS score, I believe. He's a
Mm-hmm.
6'3" corner,
Big dude.
extremely
Yep.
long, pretty physical. I don't think that that's necessarily his calling card, but he doesn't shy away from run defense and tackling.
Mm-hmm.
There's a theme with the players that we have drafted too. Keith Taylor Jr., Stanley Thomas Oliver, JC, even to an extent. JC's what, 6'2", 210, something like that.
They're building the Seahawks. They're
Yeah,
building the
and
Seahawks team.
I don't have a problem with that. That's an okay thing for me.
Yeah. You trust your coaching and you get the best athletes on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are some questions that are going to have to be answered though. If there is not a noticeable jump, I do think that we have to be in the market for a cornerback. Because if J.C. Horn, and we do want to see the health too, right? Because if they're able,
Who's the market? Marcus Peters.
Marcus Peters. I mean, honestly, that's what
vet,
everybody. Yeah. But Marcus Peters, what he provides though, and even though I put up that side by side of C.J. Henderson and Marcus Peters' stats from last year, Marcus Peters is a more capable coverage corner. Mm-hmm. He is the quintessential ball hawk, where he will gamble at times and get beat, and he'll get beat for big plays. You know what I mean? I think he gave up 5 touchdowns last year, which is the same as CJ Henderson. Most of those from CJ came in 1 week. So let's take that with a grain of salt too. And that was an awful week, man. But
safeties did not help him out.
Not one bit. Nope.
So going back to, I thought you were about to make this point about Peters. Peters won the Super Bowl with no, he didn't. He went to the Super Bowl with the Rams, but he wasn't on the Rams winning Super Bowl team, I believe.
I think that's right.
But he's used to making the playoffs. He's used to winning. Von Bell was this close to winning a Super Bowl. Miles Sanders was this close to winning a Super Bowl.
That's right.
Thielen was in the NFC Championship game. Hayden Hurst has been in the playoffs he was in the AFC Championship game last year. Corbett has won a Super Bowl. Hecker has won. We got these guys that either are this close or have been there. And I think they could be like, this is what it takes to these young guys that don't know. It's all they had to deal with is Matt Rule.
Yeah, it's the winning culture, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why is Udonis Haslam still on the Heat?
Yeah,
he can't hardly stand up to lace up his shoes, let alone get in and play 20 minutes a day. But he's been around championship teams. He knows what it takes to win in the league. That's what we want sometimes. That's what an Andy Dalton even brings to an extent. Now, Andy Dalton hasn't been sitting there competing for Super Bowls every single year. But Andy Dalton came in as a young player, as a rookie with a notoriously poor franchise, and he performed. He got his team into playoffs. He got his teams into situations to win and to compete for championships. You need things like that in the locker room. And as young as this team is, we had to get some of those players. Von Bell, I mean, that's recent success, right?
Yeah.
Cincinnati has been the legitimate threat. Yeah, right. Miles Sanders in the Super Bowl. And everyone's mad because Miles Sanders complained because he didn't get enough touches in the Super Bowl. Man. Do not fault him for that.
Yeah.
Give me the guy that wants to help his team more. But back with the corners, I do think that that's where we have to shore up some things and figure it
Mm-hmm.
out. The health is going to be the most imperative part. If JC looks like he's okay, if he's fully recovered from that ankle situation that he had from his offseason workouts, that'll be a huge sigh of relief for fans and the team together.
Mm-hmm.
Dante Jackson, I'm not as concerned about him being ready to go right now.
Mm-hmm.
We've still got training camp and preseason.
Yeah, and he's
He
not.
doesn't really need the reps
Yeah,
necessarily, but I do want him to feel comfortable with his injury.
yeah.
I think that that's more important than the practice reps. I want him to feel confident going full speed, cutting, turning, bursting, explosive athleticism type of moves that you don't really do when you're rehabbing because you're supposed to keep all that at bay.
Mm.
He's got to do it in practice and he's got to feel good about it before he can go out there and actually play the way that I think he can play this year.
Yeah, and they'll ease him in. He won't get. I mean, he won't get 75% of the
Right.
snaps early on. They'll ease him in, and I am like you. I'm actually pretty comfortable with Keith Taylor. We all remember the one bad game, but
Right.
man, these guys played well. They played well for the
Keith
most
Taylor,
part.
man, he had a nice rookie year too.
Yeah,
He had a nice rookie year. He
and you're
played
working with Phil Snow, man. Like, come
right.
on, like.
But you know what? Keith played really well. And I know it's college. I'm not trying to say that college is the same thing, but he played really well at Washington.
Yeah,
He was a
these are
really
good
nice player.
players.
And he's one of those guys that worked really hard to get to where he was, as opposed to just having the exceedingly high natural God given ability type
Mm-hmm.
of stuff, where some of these guys are just better athletes and they don't even really have to try as hard. Keith is a good athlete. I'm not trying to diminish that. He's an NFL player. They're all great
Mm-hmm.
athletes. He's a very good athlete, but he also just had a great work ethic at Washington. He
Yeah,
busted his butt to get things done. He comes in here, gets really poor coaching, man. From all accounts that we've had, it's
it
poor coaching with the
happens.
last regime.
Yeah,
We're about to get really good coaching. Let's
yeah,
just wait and see what happens. And we're going to get our best example these next 4 weeks in South Carolina, right? Like
yeah.
that is where we're going to see the most, of 3.5 weeks, whatever. We're going to see the most tangible ideas that we have from this team and with this coaching staff. And it's no longer just sitting around and talking about what maybe is going to happen, what maybe we deploy, how some of these guys look. No, we're going to actually see it. So that's what I'm excited about. That's what I'm looking for. But I will still reserve that judgment until we're back from Spartanburg. And then we
Yeah,
can start looking at some acquisitions.
I know there's more examples of this, and I hate that this is the example I'm going to use because everybody's going to roll their eyes at me. But man, Eli Apple and with Joe Judge, and then coming with Phil Snow and bouncing around the league to all these terrible DCs, he goes to the Bengals and is a starting cornerback in the Super Bowl. Like,
Yeah, he had some trouble there too, but he
yeah,
did
but I
play
mean, but
better. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, coaching matters. We got to remember that. We got to move on though because we're
Yeah.
kind of getting late. But also the front seven you wanted to talk about. That's kind of like all that's left, unless we want to go to special teams.
Yeah, no,
But
let's do a little front seven stuff,
cool.
because
You talk about
the
that in your article.
yes, and the obvious part of the front seven that we're going to talk about is the opposite edge rusher of Brian Burns. That has been it's cornerback and edge is the hot tickets of Panthers Twitter, Panthers fan base, and even national to an extent if they ever do talk about us. Um, but I have heard so many people say we've got to sign Yannick. We tried. I think we expressed a little bit of interest in Leonard Floyd. I just don't think that the contract was exactly where we wanted to pay for a player like that.
Yeah.
I know some people are still high on Jadeveon Clowney coming here, and that makes a little bit of sense to me, the Jadeveon Clowney thing, because of the edge setting. He's a bigger guy. I'm not a huge fan of bringing Yannick here. I won't be upset if we sign Yannick Ngakoue.
Yeah.
He's a proven pass rusher. I just I think that he's still a rotational piece. I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
he's a set it and forget it type of player. Um, I think that Marquise Haynes, who we spoke about last time, and again,
Yep.
Mike K, shout out to him, gave the update during
Let's get Mike K
OTAs
on
and
the
stuff.
freaking show.
Man, he's everywhere, right? And speaking of everywhere, that was Marquise Haynes in OTAs. That's the
Says the
reporting
best
right
player on the
now.
field.
Best player on the defensive side of the field. I cannot wait to see him with an uptick in snaps. I want him to be on the field a little bit more. I still think though that the committee is a natural thing that's going to happen, because, like you said about YGM, he does have a better run defense capability. I am just concerned, man, and this is where I was going to talk about earlier. I am concerned about YGM's overall athleticism
Mm-hmm.
and ability to stay on the field for more than just specific downs.
I think he is a cut candidate too. I think he could go both ways. Depends
Yeah,
on how
and
they want to use him.
and it really depends. Like, right, is he the transition to outside linebacker? That I think would be better for him than trying to play him at the defensive end on a light number. You know what I
Mm,
mean? If he's 265, 270 pounds, that's a little bit light for trying to play that
mm.
end.
And
Um,
Mike K did say that he's obviously gotten better.
See,
He's
I love that.
improved. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone's going to improve.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's the underlying thing that we keep on harping on, right? Is that every single player should improve with this coaching staff. I mean, every player,
Hmm.
even veterans Shaq Thompson, will probably feel more comfortable and better in this defense than he has under Phil Snow, Al Holcomb, any of those guys.
Hmm.
Um, Outside of the edge rushers, though, and there are other stories with those edge rushers, though, like rookie DJ Johnson, man, I want to see what he looks like. I want to see.
That dude,
I mean, he's a big physical athlete.
monster.
Yeah,
And he's got a motor. That
he
dude
does, but he
goes.
didn't produce anything at Oregon. He didn't produce. Like his numbers were very, very pedestrian.
Mm.
And I know it was a position switch and all that stuff. We have another tight end to outside linebacker convert on the roster as well in Jordan Thomas. That's another guy. I think he's like 6'5", 270 or something like that. Another very large human being that is playing a different position. I want to see what these guys look like. I want to see what it was that drew this coaching staff and this front office into saying that's the guys that we want to try to fill out this rotational roster with. Who is the guy that I'm forgetting? Amari Barno. This is a guy that I think is more in the vein of Brian Burns as far
Oh,
as physically, right? He's like 6'6", 240,
the last
245
two
or
or three
something.
games last year, he was all over the field.
Yeah, man,
He
he's
lived in the
fast. He's
backfield.
fast. He's quick. He's one of those pin your ears back, get after the quarterback type of players. There's got to be some development. He
Yeah, I
was
mean, and that's what I'm scared
raw.
of with him.
I hate
Yeah,
saying raw all the time when you talk about a prospect.
that's what they said
Unrefined.
about Burns.
Yeah, unrefined is a better way of putting it because he knows what he's physically capable of and he has shown ability. So it's not that he's raw and you just have to teach him how to play the position. He needs refinement to hone in on those skills that he has, those obvious skills that are better than other people. Um, Outside of the edge, though, I'm still really, really interested in seeing what happens with the nose tackle position at this team. Um, Derek Brown will play some of it. That's not his natural position.
Yeah, maybe on
He's good.
third downs or something. I
Yeah,
would see it a lot.
obvious pass rushing type of
Yeah,
situations, right? Marquand McCall, man, that's the guy. That's the guy that we keep on touching on. That's the guy that you've heard whispers about. I want to see it. I want to see what happens. Now, Joe Person put out his mailbag today on The Athletic, and one of the questions was about bringing Shai Tuttle and Deshaun Williams in. And Joe mentioned, he's like, they were brought in for a reason. He says, don't get too caught up on the change in system from 3-4 or from 4-3 to 3-4. He said, I still think that you're going to see plenty of four-man fronts on
hmm
this defense.
yeah. I think you have to.
You have to. And that's what he said. He said it's about staying multiple. And that's what we've
Hmm.
talked about. It's what I talk about in the article. Staying multiple is the name of the game. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like,
Yeah,
you need to be able to operate out of structures without giving away what you're doing.
right.
So if we're operating at a four-man front, hey, look, that's terrific for that personnel that we're talking about. Shai Tuttle and
Yep.
Deshaun Williams. I mean, these guys can operate out of the A gap, B gap. They can play zero technique if they need to. But Marquand McCall is going to be the guy that on first down, if we are running a 3-3-5 or a 3-4 base or anything like that, or any of these sub packages, I think that he's the guy that I am looking at to make a big impression and carve out a role and fill that space eater.
Yeah, yeah. There was I was watching. I didn't watch him a lot, but there were a couple of times where he'd come up big on third down. And I'd be like, "Who is this? Who did
Yeah.
that?" It was Mark. I was McCall. I was like,
Yeah.
"Who?" I didn't even and I'm one of the biggest Panthers fans I know, and I didn't really know who that was last year. And I always kept an eye out for him after that because he would just always be in these big situations at the big time. So
Yeah.
I'm a huge McCall fan.
It's interesting that Kentucky, the University of Kentucky, has put out some pretty solid defensive college or NFL players recently.
Yeah.
There's a guy in this draft this year, and this is completely unrelated. I'll go ahead and preemptively pineapple myself here. But Carrington Valentine was a guy that I was really high on, a cornerback out of Kentucky that went late in the draft. can't wait to see what he does. So
Yeah.
just sidebar that. Everybody go ahead and write that shit down so that you can tell me I'm right later.
Yeah, and I think, man, I'm really excited about Derek Brown playing in position.
Yeah.
I think this dude might have 6, 7 sacks, 8 sacks this year, maybe.
Mm.
I think that he is going to be electric, not having to take on 2 defenders all the time, plus getting the fullback in, or like
Right.
he will have ability to beat one-on-ones more often, and not have to stay in gaps for run defense as much. We've already seen that he's a really good run stopper. The whole We got to get more love on how good our run defense is. I think our run defense might be elite this year,
Yeah.
adding on the guys that we have, because almost all of them play. The only one that, like, in the past 2 years that ever was a negative run player was Hassan Reddick. But when you have everybody else set,
Well, and some
you don't
people
need Hassan Reddick.
yeah, and some people are pretty down on Brian Burns as a run defender for some reason. Like there's this hysteria going on right now about the Madden ratings that have come
Oh
out, and
yeah,
he apparently
dude.
had a bad block shedding rating or something like that. And look, I'll go ahead and say I don't play video games, so like I don't mean any disrespect by this, but a video game rating shouldn't matter to real life one single bit.
No.
Like if Madden doesn't think that he can shed blocks, that shouldn't impact our fans having a negative outlook on the actual season of NFL football.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that I wanted to. When we're talking about the front seven, we talk about the edge rushers, we talk about the line. The middle of the defense is still something that I'm interested in too, because you said it earlier that you can see Luvu playing a lot of outside if we're running a 3-3-5 and we've just got 3 linebackers out there, that he run a lot of outside. I really think that we're going to see him play inside a whole lot this year.
Yeah.
I know that he's very dynamic and that seems to translate more towards the outside playing to get after the quarterback. But for the sake of being multiple and for the sake of disguising, I expect to see him lined up in the middle of the field a lot. And it's also because of his range and his ability to find the football. So him playing in the middle of that field, if we don't have a guy like Marquand McCall out there who is eating up multiple offensive linemen and who is giving free range to get after the quarterback and get inside those gaps, you're going to need a guy who can diagnose and find that ball on his own. And that's Luvu, man. He's a slippery dude. Like he's slight enough because he gets called out for being slight. He's slight enough to like wiggle around and maneuver in a way that linebackers don't typically do. But then he hits you with this thunderous stick and knocks your helmet off. Yeah. I cannot wait to see it, man. Like I don't have any questions.
Excel 3-4. In a 3-4, I think he's going to be absolutely phenomenal.
I don't have questions about Luvu. I don't have questions about Shaq, but I want to see what they look like in this defense. And that's kind of the whole point of what are we looking at training camp, right? Not all of it is like, hey, prove to me that you could do this. It's not all proof. It's some shit that I'm just really excited about, man. Like I am optimistic about this football team and I cannot wait. Now I'm going to be down there for the joint practices against the Jets. And then I tentatively have July 29th, which is the first Saturday training camp. I have that on the schedule. Not sure that I'll make it down there for that. But I will at least be there for the joint practices. Can't wait to see all of this happen against an actual opponent too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, especially with all the hype that the Jets
all the hype, man, and Hard Knocks. You know, like maybe we'll figure out a way to get Cat Crave and Kitty Litter on HBO.
Yeah, please.
From 7 views to channel 7 on the old HBO.
Let me look at where you're at on TikTok right now.
And yeah, and I'll take a second to thank everyone that did watch and listen to our stuff. This is a fun thing to be able to do. I love writing. So the Cat Crave has been a really fun thing for me too. But now being able to kind of add to that content with this and being able to talk about it a little bit more in real time and dig into a little bit more of the specifics and details, a lot of fun. I appreciate everyone for listening. Me
too. Thanks to all 7 listeners.
Yeah. Seriously. Thanks, Mom.
You have your video is 792 views. My next closest is 364, and I just started TikTok 12 hours ago.
We are so digital.
Look Look at us.
Yeah.
I think it's the good looks.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, I figured that already.
Well, it's you though. You're the like I'm the common denominator, so it's like
Yeah, I mean,
adding
this
you
is
to
really
it gives it the
all about me.
right. Yeah. You double my views. So thanks, Ricky. Awesome. So we decided on Ricky. I gotta learn the words. It's Ricky.
Yeah,
It's Ricky.
I like the rhythm of it. At least that works.
Yeah. All right, cool. I'll actually listen to the songs. I haven't listened to it in a while.
Yep.
I might learn the words by next time we talk. But other than that, dude, look for his article on Cat Crave. It's really, really good. It came out today. No, yesterday or
Yesterday, last night.
Yesterday.
Came out around dinner time last night.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for everybody for listening. Keep pounding.
Keep pounding.